welcome to the writer's class. One of these days, I'm going to do a woman's cave or a ladies' tale podcast. Every time I do a ladies' tale podcast, I get way too excited. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing a ladies' tale podcast. And then I get all jumpy and I forget questions. And that's probably why no one in Hollywood wants to talk to me anymore. It's untrue. That's why I've moved on to asking, people in London, can they talk to me? Because they don't know that I'm a mess yet.
Oh.
Anyway, in case you're wondering what happened to the background and where's the studio, it's like London Bridge, it's falling down. Literally, it's falling down. I'll talk about that later this week when I do another interview, because I have someone who's serious, and she drove through an ice storm to be on my show one time, and I felt like ridiculous because I got in a tractor traffic jam, because that's how country I am. Anyway, not important. You're right. I do have something that's semi-serious. It's called books. Go figure. If we wrote books, and when I say we, there's normally a Jade over here, but there isn't today. So and I thought divorce was bad, and I thought being grown-ups was easy. If only I were me, or memoir and verse, foreign coffee, widow's web, and widow's debt. And if you're counting, y'all, that is six audiobooks. And you know what time this is? This is sign language time. So if I have 6 audiobooks, and then I add 11 more, it equals 17 books. And you can see the rest of those books at www.endithoughladies.com. Ha, fooled you if you thought I was actually going to do that whole thing in sign language. And there is no way I'm finger spelling that out. That takes way too long. But you're not here to hear about me. You're here to hear about our wonderful guests who drove through an ice storm to be on my show. Lord have mercy. This is our second time trying to get this right. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I would. I'm Myra Hargrave McElvain, and I'm from Texas, in case somebody is wondering. I have this accent, I've been told, but I'm not sure I really have one. You sound great to me, and I think I sound the same. Anyway, I did drive through an ice storm, and my good neighbor back here, Carol, she's my big helper. It was her house that I was able to set up for your meeting. She had electricity. I slept for 4 days in my clothes, same clothes. It was too cold to take them off. So that's about all I can tell you right now. I have not been writing. I've been getting over the ice storm, but I'm getting back to it as soon as I can.
Let me just say this one thing. What? I understand the whole sleep in your clothes because it's too cold. I had an ice storm once, and our furnace decided to go up at the same time. That was not fun. Not at all. And I think it's amazing, Carol, that you even offered your house in an ice storm with electricity or not. You'd be like, it's I'm sure. Okay. I'm sorry, and I'm happy both of you survived. I had a question about the ice storm, but I feel like we've talked enough about as a nation about it. Let's move on.
Yes.
Oh, I lied. I am gonna ask about it. So are you going to write about your surviving the ice storm in any way, shape, or form in any of your books?
I don't have any plan to.
Okay,
I don't think so. Most of my books are Texas historical fiction. My last book did start with 9/11. So that's the most modern book I've written. And that's not all that modern, but I'm not sure I'm going to get on the ice storm. Maybe if I want to write a comic thing, I'll do it one of these days.
Romance novel?
Mm-hmm. That would be fun. Give people stuff. Stay warm. It's the only way to stay warm.
Exactly. So I really I want to include Carol in the conversation, but first let me ask you one more question about your book. So why, I feel like this is the dumbest question you're going to been asked, but why Texas history? I mean, I know you live
there. I don't know anything else. I live here. I don't know anything else. I've been lecturing on history for years. I used to write historical markers, those signs on the side of the road. Real people write them, and I did it for 6 years, and that just got me turned on. So I like to place people in historic periods, and Texas is the only historic period I know, so that's what I do. And they move around in the history.
It is the most, I have to say, the state has a very fascinating history. Although, I don't know the history of New Mexico, so maybe they top you. I don't, but most of the other states we know, I don't know that.
Yeah, they have good history. We just talk about ours more, I think, than everybody else.
Everything is bigger in Texas. Like Carol's neighbor, like the neighbor's house. Carol's house is huge, right?
Oh, yeah.
Told you I was gonna work you in. I knew it. Okay, so can you? Because I see a display in the background, can you tell us the books that you have written and a little bit about them, like 2 sentences about them? And I know you got your Vanna White with her. This is
Yeah.
how you go on a show. You bring your
Yes.
own.
I've written 11 books. I'm not up with you. You've got 17 altogether. I only have 11. But this last one came out during COVID, and it's sort of an orphan because everything got canceled when COVID came out. And it is the one that opens with 9/11. There was a woman whose husband had been abusive for years. And she always secretly planned if she could escape and make it look as if she had died, that's what she would do. And when the North Tower fell, she worked in the tower. She was able to escape, and she realized, this is my chance. And she took it and boarded a bus heading for Mexico. Ended up stopping on the Texas Rio Grande. See, there I got Texas into the book again.
Bravo to that, because that was well done. Okay, Vanna, can you show us the other books as well?
Oh, the other books. Well, one most recent after that is the, here it is right here, Waters Plantation. Now, this one is set right after Reconstruction, again in Texas, but there was a man who prided himself on freeing his slaves before the Civil War. He really leaned on that. And then when his son was getting ready to leave for Harvard Medical School, he asked his father if his mother was a slave. And he had to admit to his son what he had been hiding all those years. And the boy had been passing. And so his whole life was turned around because suddenly the boy comes back from Harvard Medical School, a fine, educated doctor, saying, I'm living as a Black man. And so that is the basis of what goes on in this tale.
Wow.
We've got.
Okay. I love this one.
You think you like it? Okay.
I think I like this one.
Okay, good.
And again, I like a lot of books out on plantations. This is sad. I shouldn't have permitted that. It's a historical kind of like vibe.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in the history part, but there's a big story. The woman that he loved very much is in this book, right? Doctor's Wife. He was this guy in Waters Plantation. Name was Hal. This is a series of 3 books, and they stand alone. So I can't really comfortably call them a trilogy, but Hal Waters was introduced in this book, and the woman who is the doctor's wife was an immigrant, a German immigrant who came into Texas and was abandoned, and so quickly married this doctor, handsome doctor who had been on the ship, and thought this would be the answer to being left abandoned in Texas. And it turns out, and I won't tell you the problem, he wasn't quite the husband she expected. And so Hal Waters, the one who is the protagonist in this, is introduced in this book. And he meets Amelia, who is the doctor's wife. And I hate to tell you anymore because it spoils the book, but you get to loving him here, and then you love him a little bit more when you get to Waters Plantation.
Oh my goodness.
You're very intrigued. You're very intrigued by the character in this book. She builds it up, and I couldn't wait to read this one. They're both very, very good.
I was just about to ask how the neighbor feels living next door to such a prolific author. Are you actually one of the beta readers?
No, she, in fact, I have just joined Indies United Publishing because my publisher died in May, and my last 3 books were just abandoned because the company just quit. And so they were willing to take me on. And so that's why these books have just been republished by Indies United Publishing House, which saved my neck because I was just floundering. The books that people bought from May up until these came out, I don't know who got the money, but I sure didn't. So anyway, that's was kind of the background of how all this got going. The other book that is, well, where is it?
There we go. Vanna, Vanna's job.
This one, in that series, all these characters continue on and on to all 3 books. In this book, This is a young German family who came in, a widow and her 4 children. They had been, when they left Germany, they stood at the dock with a drunken husband leaping back and forth from the ship to the dock. And as the ship began pulling away, and as he leaped the last time, he fell in the water and drowned. But she and her 4 children came on to Texas, and her younger sister is the one who's the doctor's wife, got rich, paid her way, and the doctor built the house called Steinhaus. It was a boarding house, and this is what she operated. And she, went through yellow fever, Civil War, all of the horrors that went on. And these characters, this is really a family saga, is what it is. And it was the most award-winning book that I wrote. Even Kirkus Review gave it a star review. So I was quite proud of that.
Yes.
But all these characters are in these books, and yet they will stand alone.
Yeah, so she wrote this one first in this series, and the others were actually prequels. First.
Yeah, I wrote that one, then I
Doctor's
went
Wife
back and did
then
actually.
Waters Plantation, so it follows that sequence with the same characters. And I'm from New York State, so I knew very little about Texas history. I've been here about 20 years. So especially this book was the first one that I read of Myra's, and I learned so much about Texas history. It's really steeped in history. But she builds the characters, it's fiction, but it's very interesting. Yeah.
How do you find your balance?
Pardon?
How do I find my balance?
Myra, how do you find that? And then I will have a question for the neighbor right after this.
Okay. All
You
right.
don't go too far. Okay, Miss Myra, how do you find the balance between history and fiction? Because if it's too much history, I know it's boring.
Oh yeah, it's boring. What I really try, I take real people and I set them down in whatever's happening. If it's Civil War, if it's the Reconstruction with the Ku Klux Klan, with all of that, whatever it is, I set them down in it, and I have their lives moving around, being bumped up against whatever it is that's happening during that period. And I simply use the background of the period to add flavor to the people's lives. And yet I'm telling the history, and I'm very nutty about doing the history. I don't make it up. I don't make up the history. But I'm working on a book right now that is set in the period when Texas first began to open up to immigrants. And if I ever get back to it and get things fixed and everything going, I will get back to working on it. It'll be my number 12.
Ooh, I better get to writing so you don't catch up. I'm joking.
You're ahead of me, kid.
Half joking. Okay, and so as I promised, there will be a question for the neighbor as well. I just want to know, have you ever asked her to be in one of the books, and what would you want your character to do or look like?
I don't think so. I'm a New Yorker and don't know much about Texas except what I've learned from Myra. So I doubt it. It would have to be a whole new story.
There could be the fancy New Yorker singer that comes to town and falls in love.
Yes, we could do
Well,
that.
I'm not from New York City, so I'm not that fancy.
She's a Buffalo girl. She's a Buffalo girl.
Oh, from Buffalo. Oh, you must love seeing the sunshine though in Texas, because it's
Yeah.
cloudy in Buffalo. Cloudy and cold.
Very cold.
All right, I'm sorry. Let's get back to you. So what can we expect? Okay, I was going to ask you my normal question, what can we expect next? But I'm going to divert. Do you mind if I just divert off the path?
That is perfectly right. Yes, you might divert.
Thank you. If you were going to bring history to another genre, what genre would it be?
Well, I guess it would be a romance story. And some of mine are romance. They all have romance in them. I don't know if you'd call them romance. I don't read romance stories very often. The few times I've read, I always want to kick the protagonist because she's such a wimp. And I just don't like that. You're welcome.
Okay, I've written 2 romance stories.
Have you really?
I really do not believe in having wimpy, cryy, indecisive women being like leading the story. Like, you need to know what you're doing, and the man needs to either decide he wants to be in your life or not. Like, this is what we're doing. You can jump on, or
Now, are your romances like that? Are your women tough?
yes.
Good. Then I might read yours.
No, mine's are mean. Like, okay, people read my romance stories and they go, it's so upsetting.
It's so what? Pathetic?
It's so upsetting.
Oh, upsetting. Oh, upsetting.
Yeah, because like everyone's like, the man has to be wonderful. And I'm like, how many men do you run across that are just plain out Prince Charming? Even Prince Charming's not Prince Charming.
Well, there is one who lives here in this house.
Everybody thinks my husband is Prince Charming.
Yes, he's
Well,
very.
for you, that works. For the younger generation, I feel like we have a lot of frogs. And
Yeah.
we should talk about these frogs in romance novels.
Yes, yes. And you can still call it a romance.
Exactly.
Okay.
You get over the difficult. I'm assuming you have been with someone for a while now, and you know that like there are parts that you love and parts that you don't love, but you learn how to love them.
That's right. You do. You do. You
And
learn.
eventually at some point you actually appreciate the parts you didn't think you were going to love.
That's right. Well, now mine is different. He supports me. He really supports me, and he cheerleads for me, and he's behind me every time. He would be in here now, except he's not very well. He's 97.
Wow.
And he's good looking.
Yes.
I was like, well, you're still pretty, so he better be.
Carol will tell you he's good looking.
Yes.
If I die, the women are going to knock the door down, bringing
Oh, yeah.
casseroles.
He'll be beating them off with a stick. Even at
So, I'll tell y'all a little story. So my daddy is 70 years old.
Is that right?
He's still very handsome. In fact, like somebody in their 20s hit on him not too long ago.
Mm.
Very upsetting. Very upsetting.
You don't like that.
No. And like since the house fell down, he's actually here with me today. The house fell down, he's here with me today. And so like when my mother passed away, there were so many women, and I was like, excuse y'all. I don't know where you came from, but you better go back. You better go back. Fortunately for me, my dad was like, I had one good marriage. I will never get married again. So I've been very fortunate that I don't have to be like, and who is this woman you must make her leave. But I understand what you're saying. It's very upsetting to think about. I can't imagine being the person like, no, I couldn't think about it. How do you do? None of my darn business, but I'm asking, how do you like know that he's good looking and someone else going to try to come in there?
I'm not worried. I'm not worried. We used to take people on historic tours. We did about 9 years, went all over the world. And one of the selling points was him. We always went with all the groups, but I knew I was the one. I didn't have any trouble with that. We could let him be the selling point, but that's
I'm
all
gonna
right.
I'm gonna say, and as a young person, I might take your advice.
That's right.
Yeah, I might have to take, because there was a good looking person and I was like, they're too good looking. Everybody's trying to get them. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna tell myself I'm the one.
You're the one. You're the one.
So that brings me to an other question. So if you had to write your love story into history, what period of time would you put it in? In Texas history, of course.
Of course. I don't know anything else, I tell you. I think I would like that period when the Germans came in the 1840s and 50s, while it was a rough and rugged time, but they were rugged people. And I think I'd like that. I don't know if I'd like living that way, but I think I would enjoy writing the love story in that period.
Nice.
They were
Okay,
determined to make it.
I'm going to act like I'm a professional and do the interview without any more surprises.
All right. All right.
So what can we expect of your next book?
I beg your pardon?
What can we expect of your next book? What time period?
Well, I'm hoping it opens in 1817 in Natchitoches, Louisiana Parish. And then they come into Texas with the very first wave of early immigrants that came in with, you wouldn't know who, but it's Stephen F. Austin, who was called the father of Texas. So that's early beginning of Anglos coming in. And the story, the title is The Reluctant Bride.
I'm
She
loving
she grew up on a plantation and was quite really willful, but loved a slave boy that she grew up with. He always took care of her from the time she was born, and they were just friends always. And she ended up, he was her lover, and got pregnant, of course. And then the father, without knowing all of this, arranged for her to join a man who was coming to Texas. And so she had to do something. So she ended up marrying the guy and coming to Texas. And the whole story is about how she deals with all this pregnancy and losing her lover.
You have put some very interesting and strong, almost women fiction issues into these historical novels. How do you do this? How do you bring like modern women's issues into and bring them firmly into the past and make them realistic?
That seems the important thing in my stories. I want the issues that we deal with today to be in the stories that I'm writing about, because they were things that happened at the same then too, just like now. But it's important to bring those out.
Okay. I want to thank you so much for being here today. See, I did the professional part. It just was not as much fun.
Very nice. This is a bunch of people who want to know about Texas. This is a collection of 113 Texas stories. It's nonfiction, but I wrote a blog for 7 years every Friday afternoon, bless my heart, and put some of those together in this little book. It's called Texas Tales, Stories That Shaped a Landscape and a People.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to that.
I think some of these in her lectures, and they're very interesting and usually engaging. You know, she throws in a little bit of humor and some obscure characters. So interesting.
I heard the word lectures. Where do you lecture?
Well, I've lectured for a number of years for the University of Texas continuing education program. And then Carol used to come to some of my lectures. I lectured at retirement centers here in Austin. And I think about 5 years, I lectured at one that she came to every month and listened to my tales. And even though she doesn't live in a retirement center, she just came in. But that's the kind of thing. I go to book clubs and, you know, places like that, telling stories. That's what it is, just stories.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. I do have one more question before I go. I said I was going to keep this on task, but I'm not going to.
All right.
If we were coming to Texas, where would you tell us to visit?
Well, everybody goes to San Antonio, and I think it is fascinating to go to San Antonio and see the Riverwalk, glance at the Alamo. If they give you a good history there, that's good, but there's a lot more to the Alamo than the battle. And Austin is fascinating. Austin is a beautiful city. If people want to see a city that's really beautiful, I love it. And those are the places I would recommend, those two. And if you want to get some really interesting German history, go to Fredericksburg and Galveston. I love Galveston. I've written about Galveston a number of times, and it is an amazing place. Terribly good history.
I want to go to Galveston. It's on my list. I've only done Houston and Austin.
Well, yeah, Galveston is really a love of mine. I wrote for the University of Texas Press in the 80s, probably before you were born. They published 3 of my books, and one of them included a section on Galveston. I just love the place.
Well, hey, y'all at the University of Texas, if y'all gonna watch this, can you please invite 2 little African-American poets down to teach a class, and we will happily visit any part of Texas. I'm joking. But no, honestly, that is how I travel nowadays. It's on book tour. But
is that right? Well, right now I'm not doing the university. I needed to stop because I need to be home.
Yeah,
I need to be here now, and so I stopped last spring was my last lecture for them. Someday I may start again, but I need to be home now. Well, so I'm talking instead.
When you travel through Texas, you'll see a lot of historical signs along the highways, the roadways, and she wrote for many of those.
That is so amazing.
Historical
It's like
markers.
living art. Like, you know how people I was like, this is living art. I'm like, no, that's living art. Like it's gonna keep going and that's just
Well, if
wow.
you, I believe history should be taught as stories about people, not old dates and battles. I can't memorize those. I hated history till I got a professor as a freshman who made those Puritans alive. Did you know that when they courted in the wintertime, they put a bundling board between them? They put them in bed to keep them warm. And I didn't know that till I was a freshman in college. And that turned me on to history. I thought, wow, those people are interesting. And that was it for me.
Thank you so much. You have made
Welcome.
history alive and interesting and soap opera worthy. For the love of goodness, you should think about telenovelas because they
I
do
should tell what?
telenovela. They do great soap operas in history.
Okay, I didn't know about
To
that.
do one of those for America, please. We need one of those, and I feel like you could pull it off.
All right.
So I want to thank you so much for being here. Tell everyone where they can find out more information about you, where they can buy and read your books.
All right, dear. Thank you. Oh, me?
Yeah.
Oh, well, my books are at, Barnes and Noble. You can get Barnes and Noble, Amazon, local bookstores in Austin have them. I don't know about local bookstores everywhere, but if you go on Indy, Texas, that's connected with libraries, and you could even get free ebooks of these last 3 books that I've talked about.
Thank you.
Free through the library connection.
I'm doing that for
Good.
sure.
Good.
I might have to borrow someone's Texas library card. But
If I have your address, I'll even send you copies you can read in real life if you prefer. All right.
I love taking pictures with books. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Okay. All right.
So you can find out everything about your ladies at www.andithoughladies.com. You can go down to the middle of the page, no longer at the bottom of the page, but the middle of the page, and you'll find the charities that we proudly support. Please, you guys, think about giving them a little support too. Remember that wisdom is all around you if you're open to finding it and accepting it. So peace and love, you guys, from Winona and the Missing Jade. Oh yeah, thanks for listening.